This spring equinox is awakening the dormant healers. You know, the sun is out, you have some sunlight, vitamin D on your skin, you feel some inspiration, some vitality coming back into your body. And all of a sudden, you know, the conservation that you've been doing in the winter time, you're kind of just like coming up to this like awakening energy. Like, I'm alive, I'm awakened, I want to do stuff. Maybe I should be out here like creating. And there's kind of this like inspiration in the air. Now, the forecast for this spring equinox feels a little bit different to me than prior because there is this energy of dormancy that is typical with spring equinoxes, where it's like, oh yeah, we're like coming into spring, planting season, like more life energy is coming back to earth. But this particular one also feels like a deeper dormancy that is being awakened. So for folks who already identify as healers, like, yeah, you're waking up, you're like, washing your hands and getting your shit together, but also there's a new wave of healers that are being awakened right now. So for spring equinox specifically, well, let me backtrack, which is to say that equinoxes and solstices are really important for marking beginnings and completions of cycles. And if you think about the earth going around the sun, it takes 365 days to do so. And if you divide that by how many times it needs to rotate in order to do that, it actually calculates to 13 months, which equal 28-day months, which happens to be, you know, menstrual cycles, women's natural rhythms, etc., but we kind of live outside of that rhythmic pattern. So in these equinoxes and solstices, these are kind of these mile markers that say, okay, spring equinox, life energy, summer solstice, more of this like kind of maintenance energy, fall equinox, harvest energy, winter equinox, conservation energy. So in this spring equinox, when I said, yes, the dormancy is awakening, I also mean people who have been like super dormant are awakening too. And this is going to bring a new wave of healers that did not identify as healers before. So here's the forecast, which is that if you're feeling this new calling where you feel like, yeah, you know, I'm breaking systems, I am feeling like I should be doing something different, I'm feeling a different call towards my purpose, I feel like I'm supposed to be doing something different, but I just don't know how or what. And there's no blueprint for me, right? Like there's no like laid out rule of like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you'll be happy. There's nothing like that that's available for me. And I'm feeling responsible for kind of creating that for myself. So perhaps that means you feel like this initiation to create communities or run a business or leave a job or make some kind of transitional change in your life that really, really dictates a big change coming up. So something that is different for this new wave of healers, and as I mentioned, it might just be folks who already identify as healers or folks who are just like, I never identified with that. That word seems gross and disgusting, and how pretentious to call yourself a healer, right? Like there's all these like narratives that you might have, but this new wave of healers that are awakening with the spring equinox are really about learning how to embody the thing rather than just talking about it. And we've kind of seen a wave of that like upticking and uprising in the last couple of years anyway, but what's happening now is that you're going to see the bigger version of this. You're going to see more people saying like, I'm just done talking about it, I'm just done, you know, like knowing things in theory, I want to do it in practice. So what does it mean for you to do it in practice? So the healers this wave are going to look like the artists, they're going to look like the musicians, the creatives, the poets, they're going to look like the writers, they're going to be the guides, the teachers. There's a new energy to what this healing arts is going to look like. And now I'm saying like this is not like a brand new activity, because like, you know, there have been people who have been embodying and doing the work for a long time. That's not the point I'm making. I'm saying there's going to be a wave of that energy that's going to be like, wow, all of us all of a sudden want to create this similar thing. All of us all of a sudden want to do this similar thing. All of a sudden want to, you know, not do these things anymore. There's like this collective decision that's like no, or collective decision that like yes. And if you're thinking about it from like an individual perspective, your body's gonna panic. Your body's gonna say like, how am I supposed to change the world? How am I supposed to do this and that? How am I the only person? Da, 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 da. But that's where that's where you're needed. Like you have to initiate these things, and the spring equinox is this beautiful time where you get to initiate without feeling any of that fear. Where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna just plant shit. You know, I'm gonna just like put it into the the ground and see what sticks. But I still have to nurture it. I still have to be intentional. I still have to be caring and loving. And, I still have to water it. I still have to do all the things that are necessary when I plant something. But maybe I'm going to plant something that I've never grown before. I'm going to plant an idea that is not something that I plant every year. Like, what do you plant every year? I want to lose weight and I want to make money. Like, you're not interesting that way. Everybody does that. You know what I mean? But you might be planting something that's like, whoa, nobody's done this before, or in the way that I'm envisioning, or that I'm thinking, or that I'm feeling, and your body's going to say, this is exciting, but also scary. And so, are you sure you want to do that? And your role, as with any season, I'm going to tell you, spring equinox specifically, especially when you're planting something new and scary, your role is to breathe through that fear. Your role is to really navigate your nervous system and allow your nervous system to calm down. So with a calmed nervous system, you experience your flow state. Your flow is where you start to say, hey, yes, there's fear associated with planting stuff, and there's the unknown, and I have an option. I have an option to, go into the unknown, terrified and scared and nervous and panicked, and I need to know everything. I need to know all the details. I need to know the end of the story. End of the story is that everyone dies, right? But, you feel like you need to know all these different things, but the calm nervous system is going to say, like, yeah, I still don't know everything, but isn't that crazy and cool? Like, isn't that interesting and awesome for me to kind of navigate, like, the possibilities? And I can hold the energy of fear and panic if I choose to, or I can hold the energy of something just a little bit more embodied for me. So this new wave of healers are those embodied healers. They're the ones who are saying, I'm just done talking about it. I'm just going to show you. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to implement it. I'm going to initiate it. And at first, these healers are still scared. I'm not saying that people do things without like absolute no fear. Even when they're just like high vibe and like, nah, like they're not, everybody has their internal shit that they're having to navigate through. And so when you see these embodied healers, that's an opportunity for you to say, what is it that I want to see embodied more of in the world that I'm not seeing? What is it that I want to have space for that I don't have space for? What is it that I want to fill in the blank? And you do that for yourself. And I think about myself too, as 2020 came about, I moved my business from in-person to online. I run a breathwork facilitator certification school where I train breathwork facilitators, and coming into online space and thinking about somebody who teaches from wisdom traditions and somebody who blends the science and mysticism of the beautiful art and science of breathwork, there's a fear of like, is this going to be received? Is this going to be, wanted? Is there a space for it? Because when I looked for a certification or a training, when I looked for healing art spaces, all I experienced was harm and violence and appropriation and whitewashing and, misunderstanding of trauma-informed practices. And so there was this fear of doing something new, but an excitement of like frustration, right? Like you can be driven by bitterness, you can be driven by frustration, you can be driven by anger, you can be driven by pain, and utilize that to alchemize your intention. Use that towards fueling the things that you're planting. So an example for me, when I did plant, I started to notice like my experience was not like the most unique experience. There was also plenty of other healers, whether or not they identified as healers, the coaches, the therapists, the doulas, the wellness practitioners, who also craved a certain type of practice, a certain type of training, a certain place to exist, a certain way to belong in a group of people who were so service minded, and they wanted to be able to do it in a place that was safe. So I would have never learned that or known that if I had never taken that chance or that, that leap. I could have just been like, everybody sucks and everybody does this and everybody blah, 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 blah. And then like all of a sudden you're kind of just this victim and you're kind of just like a complainer and you're kind of just like repeating your issues rather than doing something about it. And the new wave of healers that's activating with the spring equinox is not the complainer energy. It's the doer and beer energy, okay? And I want to emphasize the beer energy a little bit more than the doer, because doing and being is like, hand in hand, but the being is more so to say that maybe I'm just done talking about the thing and complaining about it perhaps. There's a part of me that is asking to be stepping into my gifts. There's a part of me who wants to see myself in the next chapter, next version, next iteration of myself. And maybe it's me that's holding myself back because I'm subscribing to some survival programming. I think that I can, I think, blah, 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 blah. And whether those programmings are true or not, that's not the point. It's to say that when you're functioning from a survival programming, your nervous system just does not have the opportunity to experience the energy of the things that you want to do and create. And the healers these days, the energy is like abundance. Like we want to party a little bit. We want to dance. We want to shake. We want to have colors and art and music, and also understand that while it is true that there is heartache and grief and pain and suffering in the world, if we're only focusing our energy in amplifying that, that's what's going to get amplified. When we know those things exist and simultaneously hold space for the equal and opposite to exist, we're magnifying the things that are more beauticious, more beautiful, more abundant, more, towards the things that we want to do and create. So here's the choice for the spring equinox, which is one, is that some people are not going to plant anything during the spring equinox, and then come the fall, you're going to complain there's nothing for you to harvest. You didn't plant anything, you didn't initiate anything, you didn't, try to grow something. It's one thing when you try to grow something and it doesn't grow, that's another narrative. But it's one thing if you didn't plant anything, you do not get to complain fall equinox when there's nothing to harvest. Harvest season is like seeing the reaping the benefits of your work, all the hard work you do to, plant and nurture and take care and like weed the garden and whatever it is that you're planting, whatever analogy we're on now, in the fall time is like this harvest season. So one, if you don't plant, you don't get to complain. Two is that be intentional about what you're planting, and perhaps right now is the time that you plant something that you're not really used to, or something that is the normal thing that you plant, or the expected thing that you plant. You can still plant expected things, like your garden is abundant, it's huge, you can plant many things if you have the energy to maintain those things, right? But you have to be intentional, like, yeah, maybe I plant some of the expected things, like, so those are the safeguards. Yeah, sure, have some safety so you have something to eat in the fall, but also plant something crazy too. So if you've never grown like blue corn, or you've never grown like this type of heirloom, tomato, then like, okay, try it, like try that. And I'm using that metaphorically in terms of like growing things in your life that maybe you haven't planted before. So an idea or an identity of yourself that you've never planted because you never saw yourself there. And so just like, instead of complaining that like, oh, I'm not this or that, or I'm not a fill in the blank of whatever it is that you think you're not, like plant it and see like how that goes, and like nurture that, like truly put an effort to nurturing that, and to see like, can that be something that you can harvest later on? Okay, so that's your energy forecast for spring equinox. Let me know if you resonate with any of that. And just remember, the world is your playground. And until next time, I will catch you soon.